Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired.
Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the GlowCloud team.
Welcome everyone. Today we're here for a cloud computing question and answer session where we help you build your optimal cloud computing career. I'm here with my Chief Marketing Officer, Alonzo Coldman, and my Chief Operating Officer, Christopher Johnson. And together we're here every Monday to really help you get to your goals. Maybe you're curious how to become a cloud architect or how to get your first cloud architect job. or you're confused about cloud projects, or you're looking to know the difference between a cloud architect versus a cloud engineer, or you want to know how to get advanced in your career so you can skip the early steps like most people take and get to a senior role instead of focusing on junior roles, maybe accelerate your career about 10 years and add an extra $100,000 to your annual pay, that's why we're here, to help you build the most elite cloud computing career you possibly can. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mike Gibbs, and I'm the CEO of Go Cloud Careers, and I've been in this architecture world for over 25 years now. I mean, let me tell you, it's been fun. It's been really fun. From the days where nobody knew what an architect even was, and we first had our first architect jobs as design engineers, to the technical architect, which became the solution architect, which became the cloud and enterprise architects. I've done it all. Network architecture, business architecture, and there's no better job. And that's why we're here, to cut through all the noise, because there's so much noise out there. There's so many engineers trying to tell you how to be architects, which is a different career. And, you know, it's kind of like a nurse advising you how to be a surgeon. Unless the nurse was a surgeon before, unfortunately, it's just not their thing. And while they've seen what people do, you actually have to live the life to know what people do. And that's why we're here, to truly optimize your career. Please bring us your questions. Ask them in the chat box. I can't help you if I don't know your goals. And, you know, here's the thing. I know from experience, everybody waits until the end when we're ready to leave, and then we can't get to your questions. This is your life. This is your career. Conquer it. We're here completely free. There's an 18-week wait right now at $1,200 an hour to ask our team questions. Actually, to book a private consult with me, but I'm here free every Monday for you. So please ask us your questions. Don't waste this opportunity. Let's help you build a great career.
Vernon says maybe they're kind of scared of unintentionally asking a bad question.
Let me tell you what I think about bad questions when it comes to your career. If you ask the right question to the right person, you'll get the right answer. If you don't ask the question, you could find yourself doing what people do for years and never getting you there. For example, I get people that have gotten 10 certifications in AWS, learned SysOps and DevOps and Python programming, and then they go on an interview and realize they know nothing about cloud architecture. Granted, they know Linux, which is somebody else's job. They know Python scripting, which again is somebody else's job. They know Terraform, which again is somebody else's job, but they don't know how to design, present, and sell a solution to improve business performance. And that's why we're here. So ask us your questions so we can truly help you. You want to know what to learn? We'll tell you. You want to know how to stand out from the crowd? We'll tell you. You want to know how to convince a hiring manager when you've got no, you're ready to be hired anyway? We'll tell you. So ask us your questions so we can help you. There's no such thing as a bad question. The only bad question is the one you didn't ask, which caused you to get bad guidance. You know, it's funny. In my old life, when I used to practice internal medicine, I had a patient that was afraid to ask me a question. When he finally asked the question, I discovered a cancer on this patient, and we were able to treat it and save his life. But he was afraid to ask. Don't be afraid. Be courageous. Courage is not the absence of fear. Look, we're all scared. It's what you do in spite of the fear. So let's build you all an incredible career. And I want to truly, truly, truly help you. So ask us your questions. Before we begin, there's a couple of really cool webinars we're going to do to help you build your cloud computing career. I'm going to turn that over to Chris. And then Alonzo can say hi, and then we'll get to all your questions. So go ask them now.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to make sure everybody is aware of is next Tuesday, we will be having our subnetting workshop. So in our recent boot camp, a month or so ago, we did an AWS boot camp. We did a poll, and I think it was like 95% of the people said they wanted a subnetting workshop. Well, here we go. A subnetting workshop, free for you. It'll be next Tuesday, June 20th. Make sure you register for that at the link. The link will be in the description and in the chat box. Take advantage of that. We'll be following that up with a BGP workshop the following Tuesday. So 2 weeks in a row, we'll be having a workshop. So make sure you register for that so you don't miss out. The next thing, we will be having a information session next Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we will be having this information session to go over our new Elite Cloud Architect program. This program is literally everything under the sun that you could possibly need to become an elite cloud architect and set yourself up for that long-term career success. Not just get that first job as a cloud architect, but set you up for success long-term. So make sure to tune in for that webinar so that you can learn everything you need to know about this program. When we launch, we will only be taking 10 enrollments at the beginning. So make sure if you're interested in this that you do not miss this webinar and do not miss your opportunity to take these slots as they are available. So make sure to tune in next Thursday to learn all about that. The next thing I want to make sure everybody does is make sure you're following Mike and Go Cloud Careers on LinkedIn. That's where you will find all of our exciting information, all of our exciting news. Speaking of which, Mike, have we seen anything from Microsoft? It's been 3 days, right?
Oh boy.
I actually haven't had a chance to actually look at the news from Microsoft yet today. I was in physical therapy for my hip this morning, so I didn't really have a chance to see it, but I'll be excited to see what Microsoft actually says. One thing we know about Microsoft, when they have outages, they give you a clear, honest, ethical, and believable answer. And it's not a fluffy answer that's going to make us be concerned about who they are and their trustworthiness. So I'm very excited to see what Microsoft has to say.
So
it's a reminder, all tech fails, no matter how good you are. And you simply cannot have a single cloud if you need high availability. Doesn't matter how many regions you use. It doesn't matter how many availability zones you have. Here's the reality. A single cloud is a single point of failure. It shares a single control plane, the thing that orchestrates the cloud. It shares a single network, which connects everything together. And if that network gets hacked or that control plane gets hacked or goes down, the whole cloud goes down. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind.
All right. So make sure you're following us on LinkedIn so you can stay up to date on everything that Mike is talking about. Those are all the things that I've got. Alonzo, what do you have to say this fine Monday?
Well, as usual, it's always great to see everyone here. We are excited to answer your questions, and because of the limitations of our schedules, we already know that our efforts and things that we have to do keep piling up on an hourly basis, especially at the beginning of the week. So I put in a little quote about not asking questions, and remember that if you don't ask questions, or rather, if you don't know and you ask questions now, you're only uninformed for a few minutes. However, if you don't know and you never ask questions, you're going to be uninformed forever. So if you want to be a cloud architect, if you want the career, if you want the trajectory, if you want to know how to plan your career from your point, wherever you are in tech or outside of tech, now's the time to ask questions. So don't hold back. Don't be shy. Don't feel like there is a quote unquote stupid question. We're here for you, and we're excited to answer your questions. So let's go.
All right. So let's go with our first question. Our first question is, I keep seeing that Kubernetes is a big tool to learn for solutions architect. If so, to what extent?
Okay, so young Fuego. So what we have to remember as an architect, you're not going to be touching the technology. You're going to be designing the technology, presenting the technology, and selling the technology. Now, Kubernetes is not a tool at all. Kubernetes is a container orchestration platform. And what that actually means is, if you're going to have containers, whether they're sitting on a virtual machine or a serverless environment, we need something to orchestrate the containers. How many instances of the container do we need? If a container crashes, how do we restart it, for example? How do you design a high availability thing? So that's what you need to know about Kubernetes. What is Kubernetes? How does the technology work? And then you need to know all about the orchestration platforms. For example, AWS has a service called EKS, or Elastic Kubernetes Service. It doesn't work in 98% of cases, and here's the reason why. 98% of customers are multi-cloud. So let's say you used Amazon EKS to go manage your Kubernetes clusters, but your systems are in AWS, Azure, and Google because you're designing a high availability system. If AWS goes down, all your systems are going to crash on Google and Microsoft as well. So the reality is you have to know Kubernetes and how it works at the functional level. Because if you're going to design a critical high availability system across multiple clouds, you're going to have to know how to build it. I mean, you're not going to building it yourself, but you're going to have to know how to architect it or design it so those cloud engineers and DevOps engineers can actually build it. But remember, young Fuego 25, we are not hands-on people. We are systems designers. So what do you need to know? You're going to need to be able to ask the customer the right questions about their business and business applications. Do they have an application which is a monolith that might be better in microservices, in which case they would be there in Kubernetes? Should that monolith stay a monolith because it's going to be better or cheaper or higher performance for their specific use cases? And if so, what are the compute requirements of these containers? Meaning, do I need 1,000 containers running at all time? Can I do 50 containers and auto scale them where I can do 2 containers? What are the DRAM requirements of the containers? What are the CPU requirements of the containers? What are the networking requirements of the containers? These containers in Kubernetes, how do they integrate to a backend database? What kind of APIs are necessary to do that? So it's all about the system design of Kubernetes. And when it comes to design, it's the exact opposite of configuration. For example, I could teach you how to click 5 buttons and launch an EC2 instance, which is a virtual machine. But that will teach you nothing about virtual machine design, which is related to the performance of the virtual machine, the CPU cores, the DRAM, the speed of the drives, the network performance. So the key is you need to know a lot about how it works, a tremendous amount of how it works. So how do you learn this? Here's the good news. Kubernetes has its own website. I would read that because they're going to explain all the technology. And you got to go to the source when you do these things. That's what we would do. Next, you can go to VMware because they have a managed Kubernetes environment and they've got good documentation on it. You can also go to IBM Red Hat where they have OpenShift. And that's how you're really going to learn Kubernetes. The stuff that cloud providers have is just pre-managed for you. In that, you just use their stuff and it just theoretically works until their cloud goes down. And then it doesn't work. And if you use their stuff, they're managing it versus you managing it, and you always have more control. With 98% of organizations using more than one cloud, keep that in the back of your mind that you need to understand the underlying technology so you can deploy these Kubernetes containers in their private clouds as well as multiple public clouds, and then you should be good to go. But remember, we're not going to be building things. We are not hands-on as architects. We are systems designers.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind also is if you see Kubernetes out there, be careful and look out for the ones that ask for 15 years of experience.
Yeah, I was just about to say
or,
that.
you know, anything that doesn't fit reality, because I've seen the job descriptions that ask for Kubernetes experience that is longer than Kubernetes has been in existence. So there's something to be said about seeing that something is a big tool or a big part or a big requirement or anything like that. Well, just because it's out there doesn't mean that it's a requirement or necessary.
Yes.
There's a lot of bad information that's out there. So just piggybacking on that, that what you may see may not be exactly right.
Usually won't be.
Yeah, that's definitely a nice understating, especially if they want a cloud architect and they're asking you to learn how to deploy or any other hands-on execution of Kubernetes, aka K8, then yeah, you run, because they want a some sort of cloud engineer / architect / sysad / DevOps all-inclusive entity that is not even, they're not even going to pay a fraction of what such a person would be if they even existed, because you would need 10 lifetimes of experience to do all these things effectively and creatively and efficiently. So we definitely can help you understand how to read the terrain on what these resumes actually are looking for versus what you should be running from.
Yeah, actually, here's the secret. If it involves touching the technology, it's an engineering job, no matter what's in the title, because you can't be focused on the big picture and then zoomed in. You'll miss things.
All right. So our next question is from Bliss. The last time I checked, there's 700,000 open jobs in the U.S. for cybersecurity. How will all these positions be filled, and what are the skills for the position security cloud architect?
Okay, and Bliss, thank you for answering the question. That's why I was typing on my phone. I wanted you to get that. So there is 700,000 jobs positioned for security professionals right now. I'm going to tell you right now that about 300,000 are going to be completely eliminated because artificial intelligence is going to do engineering. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Any job that's in architecture cannot be eliminated by AI, but any job that's like software engineering or hands-on engineering, a lot of them can be. Here's the difference, Bliss. If you're out there talking to clients and learning about their business needs, if you're out there selling to clients and learning about their business needs, if you're out there leading a team, building a business case and an ROI model, responding to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs like a cloud architect or a cloud security architect does, you will be safe. But if you're there configuring firewall rules like a security engineer, or a penetration tester where you're writing an automated script to kind of hack, artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence can do half of those jobs right now. And it will get much, much better. So I strongly encourage you to please, and I'm begging you all, stay on the customer-facing side, like a cloud architect, solution architect, enterprise architect. And if you're going to be an engineer, make sure you get your business acumen, leadership skills, sales skills, executive presence, communication skills. So you can be a customer-facing engineer, like a distinguished engineer or a sales engineer. Because these back-end jobs are going away. IBM already canceled 7,200 positions that were not customer-facing, like cloud architects are customer-facing. And they canceled it, and they're laying off another 8,000 because AI is doing it. So we need to focus on security jobs. The reality is, I could take on 10,000 new cloud architects every day and get 10,000 cloud architects hired every day. And I don't think we could fill all the positions in the next 20 years for architects, because the more new technologies come in, the more they need business and technology experts to tie the pieces together to maximize business performance. So what are the skills for a cloud security architect? First, Bliss, you have to remember the architect is a customer-facing position. So the most critical skills for the architect are not the tech, and I'll get to the tech in a minute. They're actually your customer-facing skills. Bliss, as an architect, both you and your manager will be paid based upon how much product and technology services you sell. And if you don't sell, you'll be terminated. And if you do sell, you'll get rewards that can be so much that you could potentially buy a Porsche on one of your quarterly bonus checks or more. And I've seen it happen for lots of good architects. So to keep that in the back of your mind, you will need exceptionally good sales skills. Now, when you're communicating to executives, and here's the thing, Bliss, engineers don't write checks. The chief information officer, the chief financial officer, the chief executive officer, the chief technology officer, they have the budget to buy your $50 million security solution. So in order to sell to them, you're going to need something called CXO relevancy. Now, Bliss, as an architect, we can't afford to touch the technology because the second you would be touching a firewall, you wouldn't be educating the people with regards to anti-phishing campaigns and anti-social engineering campaigns. You're not going to be able to write a security policy for the organization, which you're going to have to do. You're not going to be able to ask people questions to go find out the security weaknesses. So you're going to have good leadership skills. Now, the reality, Bliss, is whenever you go to an organization, you're going to find out they've been hacked in some way, shape, or form, where they've got these little security things. And you have to get the information from people in a manner where they'll give it to you without feeling you're going to judge them and then fire them. So you're going to have a great degree of both information gathering skills as well as emotional intelligence. Now, Bliss, for a cloud security interview, for the cloud security role, you'll be spending approximately 20 to 30% of your time delivering presentations. So you must have extremely good presentation skills because you're going to be giving presentations every day. There'll be days where you give 5 presentations in a single day. There'll be days where you do none, but all in all, you're going to give presentations every day. Now, you're also going to be doing a tremendous amount of writing thought leadership documents that are going to help sell product and services for your company. You're going to be writing white papers. You're going to be responding to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs. You're going to be coming up with architectural documents. So you're going to need extremely good executive writing skills. Now we get to the technical skills. You're going to have to know internet protocol in and out because we're going to be dealing with firewalls and we're going to have to be thinking of packet filtering and things along the way. So you're going to have to know internet protocol. You're going to have to understand some knowledge of routing and BGP, because if you don't have a route to it, you can't reach it. So part of network security and cloud security or any kind of security is knowing how to secure the network. You're going to need to know a lot about how next generation firewalls work, how intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems work, how VPN concentrators work. For example, why you shouldn't use a Bastion host unless you feel like getting hacked that day, even though they teach it in the certification. Then you're going to need to know about how to write security policies. You're going to need to know about security frameworks. You're going to need to know about application security. You're going to need to know about encryption strategies, secure WANs, for example. You're going to need to know about what you can do to the host and start being able to guide people on what services to shut down on operating systems, how to come up with an intelligent patch management schedule that's going to not overbear the organization and still keep their systems tight. Host-based IDS, IPS systems, lots of knowledge on zero trust, SASE, lots of knowledge on data loss prevention, as well as security event monitoring, those kind of things. Those are the kind of things that you need to know, not to touch, but to actually design it. But even if you know all the tech, if you can't get the information from the customer, can't design it, present it back, and sell it to the customer, they can't hire you anyway, because that's the job. And I really want people to remember, in these jobs, your bonus and or your longevity in the career is how well you can sell. I can have the best architect in the world that knows everything. But at the end of the quarter, if that account team doesn't meet their quota, it's the sales rep and the architect that are going to get fired. Now, you're not going to get fired for one bad quarter, because sometimes you just can't sell. But if you can't sell 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters a year in a row, you won't be there. So know how to sell. Know those soft skills. Develop your business acumen. They're the most critical skills for the architect, and they're also the ones that most people don't focus on. But Bliss, the business acumen is really critical. Go to salary.com and ask it, what is the average salary for people with strong business acumen skills? And you'll see it's $557,000. And that's the difference between a basic architect at the bottom and an architect that goes to the top. Is those business acumen skills. So they're critically important. Focus on them. And that's why we have the Elite Architect program, where we truly focus on deep business acumen skills. Great questions.
All right. So let's see. Follow up from the earlier question. What role does EKS play in the world of cloud architecture?
Young Fuego, none. If you're a really good cloud architect and you're designing hybrid and multi-cloud solutions, EKS isn't going to work, because it's going to create a single pane of failure in the AWS cloud. So get used to Kubernetes, get used to how to design a cluster and having the team actually build their own. And put part of your cluster orchestration in Amazon, part of it in Azure, and part of it in your Nutanix data center. And then AWS cloud can go away with their next power failure. You won't care, because the Azure cloud or your data center will be up. Microsoft gets hit with the DDoS attack. You won't care, because AWS and your data center will be up. That's the way the elite architects work. They don't use these proprietary services. They stay away from them. And they use open services. That's the key to foster innovation. Good question. And Chris is talking to a muted button. I do it all the time.
We've got a multi-part question coming up.
Well, that's going to be cool.
All right. Hi there. I joined IT last year, and in the last 6 months, I am in a project where we are doing Windows Server migration from 2016 to 2019. Everything is hosted on AWS. Had many learnings. Now I'm learning AWS SAA. I feel that I'm getting good knowledge of AWS, but if I see outside of my current job in the market, only AWS is not sufficient. Networking is the thing that interests me.
Oh.
How can I choose my career path? I'm not even sure what my goal is right now. There's a character limit, so I asked in 3 installments. So
we got one question for you.
Okay, sure. Here's the most critical question. What do you want to do? There is no such thing as a career path. I hate when people talk about this. Do you know what a doctor's first job is? It's a doctor. Do you know what a lawyer's first job is? It's a lawyer. Do you know what an architect's first job is, if they're trained right? An architect. And I've got a client list that's 1.5 miles long of people that have gotten their first architect jobs. What interests you? Do you want to design networks like a network architect in the data center? Do you want to design networks on the cloud and the data center combined? Because that's a different career. Do you want to build networks by hand? Do you want to build things on the cloud? Do you want to design things on the cloud? What do you enjoy? That's the key. What do you enjoy? That's what I need to know.
He's 24. Doesn't matter. What do you want? Tell us what part of networking
24,
interests
42,
you.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. What is it you actually enjoy? Because a network engineer is configuring things on the network. A network architect like me is designing things on the network. And it's a completely different skill set.
So let us know which part of it interests you.
And then we can help you.
Kind of give you some guidance there.
And I can give you the guidance on the careers. For example,
there we go.
So designing things on the cloud.
Okay.
So right now you're doing hands-on things, and that's okay, but that's not going to teach you how to design anything. And you're going to need to get training on design. So here's the difference. Too sharp. And I love design, and I love networking design as well as data center design. Let's say, for example, you went to a Cisco router and typed router BGP 65312, neighbor 192.168, remote AS 65313, and you added a network statement because you wanted to advertise a route in the BGP. Network 10.0.0.0, mask 255.255.0.0. Poof, you entered that in the command. Now that's hands-on, and guess what you learned how to do? Configure that on one router. Now, when you do that, here's what's going to happen. Assuming it was to the internet service provider, about 800,000 routes are going to come into the network. When those 800,000 routes come into the network, it's going to change everything in that network. For example, if you did that in a virtual router in Cape Town, where Tyrone from my team is connecting to the internet, that might affect the internet traffic for somebody in New York City. It might change the video networks that the organization is using in Dubai, and it might affect the supply chain that's over there in Hong Kong. All because one person did one thing in Cape Town, South Africa. And that's what we need to understand is engineering is what's in front of you. Architecture is the entire system. So if you were to drop a car out of the sky into the ocean, when it hit the ocean, you're going to see a big splunk and then a big splash and a bunch of waves that are going to reverberate through the system. Now, as those waves reverberated through the ocean, maybe there's some fish that are swimming around that are jumping out of the water along the way because they were affected by what happened to the water. Maybe there was some sand that got kicked around. Maybe a crowd pops out of the ocean that was sitting on the bottom when the car hit it. And those are the things we need to consider as an architect. So if you want to be an architect, be an architect. And I'm going to tell you, Tushar, it's going to pay you 10 times more over your life of your career over a hands-on engineering role. You'll get promoted faster, and it's a good route to the C-suite. So here you've got the option of either being a cloud architect that focuses on the cloud, or you could focus on being a cloud network architect. Now, there's other options that you could do, but you mentioned networking. It's impossible to be a cloud architect without knowing networking. Now, cloud architects don't need to code. They don't need to know anything about configuring the cloud because they're never going to touch it. But all a cloud really is a network and data center that's been virtualized. You've got routers in the data center. You've got routers in the cloud. You've got servers in the data center. You've got servers in the cloud. You've got load balancers in the data center. You've got load balancers in the cloud. You've got storage area networks in the data center. You've got storage area networks in the cloud. So the real key is knowing the network in the data center, not how to touch it, because that's irrelevant to us. How does it work? So Tushar, like say you wanted to design an airplane. You don't need to know how to fix the engine. You need to know aeronautics and how the plane creates lift. You need to be able to think about what the plane would weigh and how fast the plane needs to be to fly. That's the kind of thing that we're actually getting to. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. If you want to be an architect, please attend the How to Get Your First Architect Job webinar. And networking, I think, is a great, great, great field, or the cloud thing. So tell me which one you want to do, design the cloud networks or design the cloud security. We'll come back to you in a few minutes.
All right. So Alan says, I apologize for the same question you probably answered previously. How long is your program and allocated time needed to complete?
Alan, our program is until you are hired.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? If you take our course, our expectation is that you stay in it until you are hired. And that way, we're not some boot camp that's just charging you money, kicking you out after 16 weeks and leaving you alone. By the way, we retrain all those people every single day. I will tell you, on average, if you put your heart, your mind, and a lot of effort into it, it'll take you about 8 to 12 months in our program to get hired if you do the work. I've seen people get through sooner, and I've seen people get through longer, but I don't know your background. For example, I had a Richard the food car that got hired by AWS within 3 weeks. And I don't think he slept for the first 3 weeks of my program. I also had a Joe Milling get hired by AWS as a senior solution engineer. I'm sorry, a senior solution architect in 3 weeks, but he was a Cisco certified in our network. Or you could be people like Al, who just left our program and got a senior solution architect job at Deloitte, and it was his first tech job. Now, it did take him 12 months. Or you could be people like someone like Gadel Rai, who took our course and had no tech background, and it took about a year to get his first cloud security architect job. But when he joined our program after about a month, he got a security job, and then rode that job and took our program until he got hired at the end of the year. So we've got a lot of people that have no background and a lot of people that have a tech background. All in all, for the hands-on techies, it's about 8 months to 12 months to a year because they're used to configuring, which is different than designing. And every once, and at least half of our students don't come from tech. And in many cases, they're actually advantaged because they've worked in sales careers or leadership careers or other careers where they have to talk and present a lot. Here, they just have to learn the tech. So I would say about 8 to 12 months until you get hired in our program. But you stay in the program until you're hired. You can attend the live classes for a year. After that, you can still use our Slack community and you still have access to our course. And even then, with each new course, we still add it to your portal after you bought it because we want you to get better and have a world-class career.
From Josh T. Upon embarking on a career as a cloud architect, what daily efforts would you advise to ensure our technical and business skills remain contemporary and relevant? Nice question.
Josh, I expect you to work. And what do I mean by that? If your fundamentals are good, it's nothing to stay relevant. Josh T, what if I told you that in 1996, the first cloud I worked on with virtual circuits was Frame Relay? What if I tell you that someone working for AWS just last year posted how this really impressive thing, how they could create virtual network connections in their cloud? It was interesting when Cisco did it in 1990. Not so cool when AWS came up with the same thing 20 years later. What if I told you the virtual machine, for example, that VMware invented in 1999, which IBM previously invented in the 1970s to timeshare mainframes, is the basis of an EC2 instance on the cloud or a Google Compute Engine instance or an Azure virtual machine? What if I told you that in 2000, Cisco had something called NetFlow, which would basically tell you how the traffic went through your network? And guess what AWS's new invention is? VPC flow logs. 20 years later, same thing that Cisco did. Well, I think Cisco did it better 20 years ago. What if I told you that AWS had a brand new white paper that you could do IPsec over a private line? What if I told you, Josh, I did that in 1998? So Josh, the cloud is almost catching up with the things we've done in the network and the data center for the last 20 years. And the things that are not, John. So like in 2000, for example, Cisco came up with something called a private VLAN. That was a VLAN where servers couldn't talk to each other in the same VLAN if you set up that policy. Now, 15 years later, we have containers, which is effectively the same thing. So as they say in RFC 1925, the request for a comment, all old technology gets renamed as something new. It just does it at a different speed and feed. So if your fundamentals are strong and you're going to be working with each new technology that's going to come out, which you're going to go to conferences for and you'll attend briefings for, and all these companies want to sell you, so they're going to be giving you webinars, you'll never be out of date. On the tech side's nothing to stay relevant. Now, on the business side, I actually created a tech leadership course. We're currently calling it How to Make More Money in Tech course, the elite program, or an MBA program. That's how you focus on your business relevancy. And here's the thing. Early in your career, Josh, people over-focus on the tech. As it gets later in your career, you've got to be there. So Josh, I started out as a technical architect. When I wanted to get a real architect job where I wasn't touching the tech and I was designing, presenting, and selling and earning really good money, I got an MBA. And then after my MBA, I took about $100,000 of leadership training, sales training, executive presence training, communication skills training. And Josh T, that's why I put all of that in my cloud architect program, because we're the only people that do that. And that's really the secret to getting hired. But that's the key to get out of the basic architect jobs, is to continue to go to professional development. Make sure you speak at conferences. The more you speak at conferences, the better you're going to get. Make sure you have a coach, Josh. I have an executive coach. She's been with me for 20 years. Even though I'm published in like a professional journal or magazine several times per week, even though I've taken all the big stages, I still have a coach. And if you talk to any CEO at any of these big tech companies, they have an executive coach too, to help them be better. So continually go through professional development. Continually. I constantly go through professional development, even though I've already made it to the CEO world. And when I made it there, so I would do that. But it's really important you do. I like to show this to people to inspire people, but the point is I was a principal architect in 2 years. Whenever you're dealing with elite jobs, you're talking about business acumen, not just tech. So here's a principal architect in Google. You can see the average pay is about $500,000 a year, which coincidentally enough is exactly what you'll see on salary.com, where they show the average salary of a job with business acumen skills is $557. Because this pay range is $394 to $677. What's that based on? Your business acumen, your sales skills, your emotional intelligence. That's how you earn $300,000 more at the top than the bottom. Here's another business acumen job. A senior director at Cisco, you can see average pay is $525, and you can see a pay range of $417 to $689. Another architect job at Microsoft, Josh. Again, here you can see the average pay is $379 with a pay range of $300 to $495. Another business acumen job. I just pick a couple at random and then I printed them out. Senior director at Palo Alto, you can see average pay is $540. And the pay range is basically $425 to $709. So focus on those skills. In the beginning, get all your business skills, sales skills, executive presence, communication skills to get hired, but you need the tech foundation to get hired. As you get better, really, it's not about how good you are in tech. It's about the team that you can build, the team that you can command, and the results that that team goes. So I advise you to try and get better every day. Read about leadership, take leadership training, take business acumen courses, CXO relevancy courses, soft skills courses, emotional intelligence courses, and as much as you possibly can to make yourself a truly elite architect. Or take our elite architect program if you're not a student. And that'll not only get you hired now, but it'll get you to the extreme goals. And if you are a student, and you've already taken our course, I strongly recommend the Tech Leadership Development course, otherwise known as the How to Make More Money in Tech Course program. That'll really, really help you once you're hired.
From Birara, can you shed a little light on how to transition from an NOC engineer to a cloud architect? In my case, I have 3+ years of experience, and he or she is also AWS Solutions Associate Certified.
Yes, you're going to need to take architect training. You see, right now in a NOC, you know operations. And operations and architecture honestly have nothing related to each other. I wish they did and I'll show you. So in operations, you've got your systems that are managing things. And whether they're using SNMP or ping to see your systems are there, and you're like, okay, this router's up, this switch is up, this is up, this is up, this thing's red, what do we got to do? And we got to go troubleshoot it. That's hands-on. Now, architecture is the exact opposite. It's system design. Now, two things have to occur. When you want to go from engineer to architect, you're going to have to learn architecture, and I'll give you a sample architecture lesson right now. And you're also going to have to rebuild your brand. When you speak to a hiring manager, they don't want engineers as architects. They want architects as architects. And here's the difference. The engineer is the techie. The architect is the business executive that understands the tech. So where you're at right now, you're focused on making systems work. And in a NOC, you do have some really good experience when things break. Somebody calls you in a knock and says, I can't reach it. And then they start with the tier 1 person. Is it plugged in? Is there paper in the printer? Is the network card there? And then when that doesn't work, you get to somebody that does a little troubleshooting, a little better, and they're running trace routes through the system and maybe a packet capture. And then when they can't find it, you find a senior engineer that actually is looking at routing tables and really understands BGP or OSPF or intermediate systems, and they fix it. Has nothing to do with what we do as architects. Alonzo, you just became the chief information officer of a bank. And I want to show the difference between engineering and architecture. So, Alonzo, could you tell me about your bank? Do you have anything like an algorithmic trading system, for example?
Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, we are very, that's a very sensitive area for us. We need to make sure latency is very low, if not reduced down to anything. We need to focus on security measures to make sure there is no interference with the communication. We need to make sure there is, with our hub and spoke, making sure that all of our locations are synchronous in their communications, and being able to, excuse me, being able to trade as necessary, considering what the locations are across the country.
Alonzo, what does a millisecond of latency cost you in terms of competitive advantage?
Millions of dollars.
How many millions of dollars per millisecond?
Oh man, we're looking at about 20.
You're looking at about $20 million per millisecond.
Yes.
Is your traffic unicast or multicast?
Unicast.
Unicast. Really? Okay, that's interesting. So, okay, that's good to know. What kind of throughput do you have between your switches?
What kind of throughput? Well, we have a lot of increased amounts of throughput and understanding. We just need to make sure that we have multicast. We have 1,000 in NVIDIA A10 GPUs. We have NV RAID arrays that are like 10 million IOPS.
So that sounds pretty good. I want to get back to that. You said your traffic was multicast. Is that correct?
Correct, it is. It's multicast.
Okay, I had a feeling.
Yeah.
So are your servers on the same subnet as your feed?
They are.
They are.
They're on different subnets. I apologize. We're on different subsets.
So your servers and your feeds are on different subnets.
Yes, we have multicast streams and servers on different subnets.
Now, I heard from some of your engineers, you're running some machine learning. Is it GPU-based machine learning? And if so, what kind of GPUs do you have and how many?
We have 1,000 NVIDIA A10 GPUs.
Okay, now on these servers, and that's a lot of GPUs. That must have been a $5-6 million off GPU order from NVIDIA. They must have been thrilled. Do they have any disk performance that you need in terms of IOPS? Do they have any RAID arrays in these servers?
Yeah, they have RAID arrays that are 10 million IOPS.
Okay, that gives us a lot of information. Are your systems running smoothly right now for the most part for your machine learning?
They are, but they could be increased more so. So we're looking for that. So that's what we're looking for.
Now, do you have a website for customer trading?
Yes, we do. We have a customer website, and we want to move that over to the cloud.
Okay, you want to move that over to the cloud. What are your availability requirements for that?
We need 5 nines of availability. Security is very critical to our needs, as downtime would actually, now that I adjust, it would be $5 million per minute.
$5 million a minute. So I'm going to sum this up. Each millisecond of latency costs you about $50 million. Each minute of downtime costs you $5 million. A security breach would be brand destroying to you. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It will be a killer for us as an organization.
Your feeds are IP multicast, but they're on different subnets between where your feeds are coming in and where your systems that are doing the algorithmic trading are on different subnets.
Correct.
Okay, Alonzo, let me go back to my team. I've got about 50 of the best cloud architects, some cloud security architects, some cloud network architects, some data scientists, some DevOps engineers, and I'll get back to you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much, Mike.
Now, Alonzo, thank you for the opportunity to meet with me again. I had a chance to really meet with our team, and a team of 50 of the best people I know, each with about 15 years experience, put a design together. Now that means our team has 750 years experience to put this design together. And we've also worked with this bank, and this bank, and we've delivered them some incredible results. That when you described your current data center, initially you told me that you wanted agility. And while I'd love to take you to the public cloud, we can't. And here's the reason why. There's going to be about 3 milliseconds getting you to the cloud. And since you told me that each millisecond is worth about $50 million a year in terms of competitive advantage by being able to execute a trade faster than the competition, if we bring you to the cloud and host this there, it's going to cost you about $150 million a year in revenue, which we don't want you to lose. Additionally, you told me that your multicast, your servers are, your feeds are multicast and your servers are multicast and they're in different subnets. The AWS cloud, the Azure cloud, and the Google cloud don't support IP multicast. Now we can tunnel through them with GRE tunnels, but we can't actually do that on the cloud. So we're going to have to keep that locally. Now here's the good news. You actually, while we're at it, you also told me that you had 10 million IOPS in each one of these servers. We can't get that in the cloud. We'd have to put 40 or 50 block storage RAID arrays in an environment, which would mean RAID 0 and another 40 or 50 to bring that RAID 10. That's just not going to work. So my suggestion is our cloud architects work with your engineering team to set you up with a Nutanix cloud inside of your data center. We'll get you the same auto scaling. We'll buy some extra servers, the same agility. And the good news is with your low weighted average cost of capital, it'll be cheaper for them to host that in the data center than the cloud. We'll get you better performance. And I think we can free up an additional millisecond with our team, which give you an additional $50 million a year of competitive advantage. And I don't think this project's going to cost that. And you'll be prepared to scale and grow for the future. At the same time, your website is pretty important to me. And you mentioned you need 5 nines availability. The reality is we're not going to get that from a single cloud. So we want to use 2 clouds. My suggestion is we use AWS and Azure. That's our team suggestion. And here's the reason why. They're the 2 biggest and most well-known. What we'd like to do is set up your own DNS environment because we can't use pre-made DNS servers. And that way, if either cloud were to go down, we'll put 50% of your traffic on each cloud. And by doing so, we can move your website. We can take advantage of the scalability of the cloud and auto scale as needed and add capacity as needed. We still want you to use 2 content delivery networks, which is going to work out fine. If we use AWS, we'll use CloudFront. If we use Azure, we'll use Akamai or something like that, just to make sure that if a content delivery network fails, you're still also going to be good. Now, you told us that you need real security, and you told us that downtime means $5 million a minute. And security is going to be a big component. What are your change management processes like right now?
Well, we could be improved, and we would like to adjust that according to the needs of our changes and our goals.
Okay. The good news is the people on our team, we've got some experts from the internet service provider world, which are experts at change management and designing 5 nines availability. And they've got some recommendations, which I'll share for you in this document. And of course, our post-sales consulting team can help you implement. Now, for your security architecture, what we're thinking is you're a bank, and you told us that what we need to do. We'll set up a DMZ and a similar DMZ in both AWS and Azure. What we'll do is we'll use a network load balancer, which will front end 2 next generation firewalls. We're going to pick Palo Alto on both clouds. Now, they'll be able to adapt to threats in real time. When we're done with that, what we're going to do is we're also going to add another set of network load balancers, and we recommend checkpoint firewalls. Why? They work on a different algorithm than the ones from Palo Alto. And by doing so, we'll be able to have redundant firewalls. And if something gets past the first firewall, chances are it won't the next. Now, even though we've got intrusion detection and intrusion prevention that's sitting inside of your systems, I'd like to set up another set of load balancers and another IDS IPS system because we want to use their logs. Beyond that, we'll protect your subnets with access control lists. We'll protect your systems with the security group equivalent. And then we're going to lock down your systems by using a specialized hardened security image where we've disabled unnecessary services, we've patched it, and we've added some anti-malware and to the systems, as well as some host-based firewalls, as well as some host-based IDF. We're going to want you to integrate with Active Directory. You're using Active Directory now anyway, right?
Yes, we do.
So we'll use that and we'll federate that to both Azure and AWS as your identity and access management platform. And we're going to recommend some heavy-duty encryption for your security. Now, I'd like to set up a subsequent meeting where my engineers can talk to your engineers and I can talk to the rest of your team. How would that sound to you?
That sounds wonderful. You really gave us a detailed analysis, and we're looking forward to the discussion, Mike.
Okay. So, Barrera, the reason I brought you this is when you work in tech as an engineer, you're focused on what's in front of you. In an environment like this, it's a business discussion along the way, and it's asking the right questions. And the only way you're going to go get that is actually getting some training. And that's why engineering does not teach architecture, because it's all about the presentations, the questions, and the way you ask the questions. And this is obviously something we mocked up, but Alonzo in a real environment for a bank would give me a request for a proposal, which would be 300 pages long and might dictate a 1,000-page response. And the reality is you're not going to be able to respond 1,000 pages by yourself. You're going to need an army of people to help you do it. We each do 10 pages each. So it's about your leadership skills, and it's going to be about your sales skills. You're going to have to beg people to do this with you, and they're going to be willing to do it, and then you're going to help them. You're going to be giving presentations every day. You're going to be facilitating meetings every day. You're going to be leading, and you're going to be selling. So we have a Cloud Architect Career Development Program. We also, on Thursday, in case you don't want to train with us, have a presentation that's going to go on for 30 minutes, and you can ask questions and come online, and we can have a face-to-face question. And we will tell you every single thing that you need to learn to be an incredible cloud architect. Every single thing. And you can train with us, which is going to be the cheapest and fastest, or you can buy the training somewhere else. All I care is that you get hired, and you're going to know exactly what you need to learn by the end of that webinar.
All right. So our next question is from G. If the job descriptions for many cloud architect roles are not accurate and recruiters aren't necessarily technical, wouldn't my understanding of the role appear as conflicting during the pre-screen?
No. So here's the thing, G. There's two kinds of recruiters, good ones and bad ones. A good recruiter will never put a stupid job description out there. In fact, here's what happens. When I speak to a real recruiter, and there's a percentage of them that are good and a percentage of them that are bad, like everybody else. If the recruiter has a job description and it looks silly, a real recruiter will ask that hiring manager, what do you really want? And the reason they're gonna ask that hiring manager when they say a silly job description, what is it you really want, is they're gonna get paid to find you a job. And here's the thing, if I wanted to sell Chris a house, and I showed him houses that my wife liked, his wife might say, no way. I'd have to ask what his wife likes and what he wants, because that would be my only chance of selling Chris a house. It's the same thing for a recruiter. The recruiter will call the hiring manager and say, what do you really want? Because a real recruiter knows. But that's the difference between an informed sales rep and a non-sales rep. I know hundreds of recruiters, and I know a small number of good ones, and I know a lot of bad ones. I know lots of architects. Most people, you don't even know why they have a job. But I know really good ones that do billion-dollar deals all the time. And they actually are the people that actually pay for everybody else's salary in these companies with the revenue they bring in. So it's not going to be a conflict. A real recruiter will know exactly what the job's required. And you can ask them. And yeah, I've actually seen jobs that with silly job descriptions, and I called the recruiter. And I said, what does the hiring manager want? Like, oh, Mike, I already spoke to them about this. I saw this job description, which wasn't an architect job. It came out of HR. It was a cut and paste job. The hiring manager really wants someone they can sell, someone that can lead, and someone that talk. So, gee, a real sales rep actually knows what they're selling. You can't sell if you don't know what your customer wants. So, gee, it's like a realtor. There's two kinds of realtors that sell your house. And believe me, I've been a victim of one once. And I've been in the real estate business for 20 years as a side hobby. And here's what a good realtor says. Mike, what do you want? And then they find you what you want. Here's how a good realtor sells your house. They come to your house and they're like, Mike, your wife's bear collection, that's got to be hidden because she's got 72 bears because she likes bears. Mike, your telescope collection, we got to hide that and put that away. We're going to stage your house like this. I'm going to add it to these 3 newspapers. I'm going to post it on these internet things, and just let me do my job and sell the house. That realtor will sell my house so fast at top dollar. Now, gee, there's another kind of recruiter that basically will send you mail once a month when they want your listing. And after they list it, you're never going to hear from them again. They're going to let somebody else in the multiple listings sell your house. That's the realtor you run away from. It's the same thing with recruiters. You're going to have to go out there and interview. But a real recruiter knows what our customer wants. Ask the customer what they want. We'll tell you, find out if you are what they want. And if you're almost what they want, he or she will coach you how to be what they want. coach you with what the hiring manager likes and coaches you how to position yourself. So the key is, who do you want on your team? And guess what? As an architect, you're going to be building teams your whole life. You're going to be interviewing people and finding the right resources for you. Same thing with a recruiter. You know, a recruiter finds you this job and they get paid $100,000 commission. Now, the recruiter that's going to get paid $100,000, if they're not willing to place a couple of phone calls, if they don't know the executives in the company, if they don't know the hiring manager and not playing golf with them and taking dinner with them, guess what? They're not going to get that $100,000 commission. So find a good recruiter and you'll be good to go.
All right, follow up to that from Bliss. A recruiter reached out to me with an architect role / engineering, and I asked the recruiter to reach out to the hiring manager and ask what he wants. Is it professional to ask such a question? After my question, he fails to reach out to me again. I want to remain respectful at the same time.
If you have a recruiter that doesn't respond to your email, they are not a recruiter. What they're probably, so Bliss, you also have to be careful with this. There's a lot of what I call fake job postings. And here's what I mean by this. And realtors do the same thing with houses that are already sold that are going to look good. They make a catch-all job description because they have to pay for the ad. And it's half DevOps engineer, half cloud engineer, half cloud architect, half software engineer, and half network engineer. And it's a catch-all. It gets everything. And it lists 1,000,001 things. What's going on is the recruiter is trying to capture resumes. And they didn't intend on hiring you anyway. And they're holding on to your resumes till the next time somebody says, I need a network engineer. And they're like, oh, look at this. I got a network engineering resume from this person. Let me call them and see if they're interested. Usually when you see a silly job description, that's going on too. And if it's a fake job description and you ask the person for clarifying information, they're not going to be there. But here's the thing. I showed you someone that's going to get a $100,000 commission to find somebody a manager job or director job. If they're not willing to call you back, guess what? They don't have the juice to be able to sell you into anything anyway, so they're a waste of your time. So when it's recruiters, it's kind of like dating. You know, they say how a person may have to kiss 1,000 frogs until they find their one prince. It's the same thing when it actually comes to finding a recruiter. I've spoken to 100 of them, and I know 5 good ones. And I've spoken a lot more than 5, and I know more than 5 good ones. But that's the key. It's going to be like kissing a lot of frogs until you find the prince.
I love your array of examples, Mike. It's
Okay. Well, I know what's going on YouTube Shorts tomorrow.
Mike is on a roll today.
Oh, all right. Let's see our next question. Woo! Let me make sure I don't go out of order here. Okay, we did that one. All right. Okay, here we go from Mohammed. Cloud network career. How's the percentage?
Okay, I think I understand. I don't like to make assumptions, Mohammed. Are you asking what percentage of companies still need network engineers? Every one of them. See, here's the thing, Mohammed. Nothing works without the network. And you know what nobody knows? The network. The network is like the secret weapon to getting hired and earning more money. Because people confuse Linux with networking. They confuse DevOps with networking. The networking is routers, switches, and cables, and fiber optic connections, and that's it. And all the protocols that those things use. Finding a good network engineer or a good network architect is like 1 in 50,000 people. I'm literally not joking. It's that hard to find them. And if you can be a good network architect, you are in demand everywhere. Every bank needs you. Every global retailer needs you. Every internet service provider needs you. Every social media company needs you. Every streaming media company needs you. There's always, always jobs for people that have good, strong networking skills. Now, you also have to figure out engineering versus architecture. I don't recommend anyone get into basic engineering careers at this point. Now, there's the engineer of the future, Mohammed, that I believe in, and there's the engineer of the past. The engineer of the past has 1,000,001 certifications and silly things, and they're all hands-on, and they know how to configure things and sits behind a desk and doesn't talk to anybody. I hate to say it, Mohammed, but if I want to go figure out how to configure BGP, I could literally go to ChatGPT and ask it, and it's going to spit out all the commands. Now, knowing how to design it is another story. Knowing how to present it is another story. Knowing how to ask the right questions to find pain points, constraints in the network, and things when they go bad, that's another story. So there's a world for the distinguished engineers, which are engineers with business skills, sales skills, communication skills, leadership skills, and executive presence that are somewhat hands-on and somewhat customer-facing. And then there's there's plenty of room for the network architects or the cloud network architects that are going to work with those geniuses. The geniuses will implement it and the architects will sell it. But for the average engineer, I hate saying it, so many of them are going to be laid off, and we're already seeing it. So lots and lots of cloud networking options that are available. Lots of organizations to hire networking people. The key is to be really good at what you do and really, really, really understand routing and how to tune it and how to secure the systems. It's an incredible career, and I've spent it, well, since 1996, I've been in networking.
All right, so we got a two-parter here. As a cloud architect, I've been researching on top of that and talking to many mentors who hasn't really knowledge of cloud career path. As of certifications for a beginner, where should I start? I just began learning cloud practitioner on AWS. I have CompTIA A+ knowledge. Just wondering where to position my career path.
Okay, well, a couple things. One is you don't want to have CompTIA certifications on your resume for cloud. The A+ is good for PC repair, but not for cloud design. I would tell you to skip the cloud practitioner and go straight to the solutions architect associate. It's basically the same course. But I'm going to tell you this right now. There is nothing in these certifications that will teach you architecture. They will teach you the name of a service and how to configure that service. Here's how you turn on an EC2 instance. But they won't tell you what an EC2 instance is at all. And then this includes the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. They'll tell you to use EBS storage, but they're really not going to tell you what is block storage, how does block storage work, how to architect it, and how to work around all the weaknesses in block storage. So that's not going to help you there either. In a certification like the Certified Solution Architect Professional, they'll try to convince you about the benefits of Amazon Aurora or DynamoDB or Elastic Compute Service. And guess what? In reality, you can't use any of them because they're proprietary and they don't work in multi-cloud, which is 98%. So what you're going to have to do is learn the network in the data center. So I'll give you some brief things right now. And then I'd like you to attend the free webinar. And also there's a free document, I believe it's in the description of this video, Chris can confirm it, that actually tells you how to become the ultimate cloud architect as well and gives you a list. What you have to understand is we design, present, and sell a technology solution. Now, in a certification, they teach you the name of a proprietary thing which you can't use with your customers and how to configure it, which we don't do. So you can't get this kind of career. Now, if I said to Chris, look, I got these exciting EC2 instances, some really cool S3 and some EBS, he'd escort me out of the room if he was my customer. And why? As soon as I use these AWS fluff marketing terms or the Azure fluff marketing terms or the Google fluff marketing terms, I look like I'm a biased individual. Chris, if he's my customer, needs me to be a trusted advisor. And if I talk to Chris about 3 petabytes of object storage, he's going to understand that because he probably has it in his data center right now. If I talk to him about his virtual machines, he knows that I understand we're communicating in the same language. If I call it EC2 or Google Compute Engine Instance or Azure Virtual Machine or Oracle Virtual Machine, well, except for Azure and Oracle, where he's going to know what it is, they're going to laugh because they're not. It's a made-up marketing term. If I use the word elastic in a meeting, if they're not in the context of macroeconomics and price elasticity or rubber bands, I'll be escorted out of the room by security. My replacement will thank me for the great cloud architect job. So the key is find and take the certifications, but understand they're completely unrelated to what we do. You need to learn IP addressing, subnetting, and supernetting. And guess what? We have a free subnetting webinar. I would like you to sign up for it right now. You need to learn BGP. Now, we're also going to do a free BGP webinar. You can sign up for that. The link is probably in the description of this video as well. You need to understand interior gateway protocols such as OSPF. You need to know how to select the right WAN technology for your client given their business needs. Whether it's an IPsec VPN, an SSL-based VPN, an Ethernet private line, Ethernet over MPLS, software-defined networking, or SASE. You're going to have to know switching, which means VLANs and VLAN tagging and VLAN trunking, and spanning tree and rapid spanning tree and link aggregation groups. You're going to need to understand ARP and proxy ARP and DNS and DHCP. And you're going to need to truly understand routing. Now, on the data center side, you're going to need to understand servers and servers and virtual machines and container orchestration, storage area and networks such as block storage, object storage, file storage, when to use them, how to tune them, the strengths and weaknesses of each approach. You're going to need to understand business applications like CRM systems and ERP systems and unified communications and things that are going to help the business run. Because if the job of the architect is to improve business performance, you're going to need to understand the tools that you have to work with you. You're going to need to understand load balancers, network load balancers, application load balancers, reverse proxies, API gateways, and the such. You should have some knowledge of some application deployment models like a blue-green deployment, for example, versus a canary deployment, and the strengths and weaknesses of each approach. We don't code, but we definitely need to do these things. You'll need to know what kind of databases to use. When do you use a relational database? When do you use a NoSQL database? How do you select the right NoSQL database based on read traffic and write traffic, for example? When would you use a data warehouse? When do you need like mapping and reduction tools like PySpark to pull things out of your various databases to create a data lake? You need to understand something about how machine learning and artificial intelligence works and how to architect that into your solutions, because they're going to be there to improve your customers' business performance. You're going to need to learn security appliances, such as next generation firewalls and IDS, IPS systems, and VPN concentrators, because you're probably not going to be able to use those cloud native tools. They're not going to be good enough for the enterprise. Now, of course, you're going to need to learn how to give a great presentation. You're going to need to learn how to sell. You're going to have to learn how to build a business case. And here's what I mean by a business case. If I wanted to sell Alonzo $1 billion of technology, and I've done a lot of $1 billion technology solutions, I better convince Alonzo that the $1 billion he spends on my project will deliver more than $1 billion of value to the business. And also that if he invests $1 billion in my solution will yield a greater return on investment than some other solution, because I've got to compete for the money. That's called opportunity cost. I'm also going to have to learn how to give presentations, because I'm going to give presentations daily at conferences, to customers, at executive briefings, for example. And I'm going to have to learn how to respond to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs, and the such. So you could do these training individually and then get an MBA for the business acumen. You could take our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, which coincidentally costs less than 3 days' pay for our average graduate. We're getting people hired almost every day with it. But you're going to need some form of training somehow. And it can't be name of a service, how to configure that service training that's in your certifications. It's going to be there. And that's why we retrain everybody from everybody else's boot camps, because they're doing cloud projects and Python projects and configuration projects. And in architecture, we don't touch the tech. We design, present, and sell it. I hope I answered your question. And please also come to the webinar, and please download the free guide in the description of this video. You'll get a lot of information there.
From Karen, other than cloud security architect, what roles would you recommend in the cloud security space? And where should we get the training, CISSP certification, for example?
Well, if I was in security, I would only recommend the cloud security architect. I really don't like engineering positions right now, except for the distinguished engineer. And here's the reason. It's not that I don't think engineers are great. I love engineers. But Karen, here's the thing. It doesn't matter where your engineer is. So if I've got a choice of hiring an engineer in the US to play with the firewall, or an engineer in India, Pakistan, Africa, someplace where I've got an abundance of highly skilled people with a lower cost of living than the US, I can hire the same great worker at a company for 1/5 of the price or less. So when businesses are tight on money, I recommend staying outside of engineering careers. And the reason I say this is, as a security architect, you're designing the solution. As an engineer, you're building it. Now, Karen, here's the other problem with engineering positions. The tech and generative AI can do 50% of the job. So I strongly don't recommend anything other than security architect jobs or cloud security architect jobs. Now, I recommend you learn security architecture. You're not going to get that in the CISSP. And I do recommend doing the CISSP, but you're not going to learn anything about security in it. CISSP certification, and I did it. Basically, at Cisco 1 year, they decided that every sales engineer in the company was going to do the CISSP. So they brought in a certification boot camp, and like 5,000 of us did the CISSP in less than a week. You can't build a career in less than a week. I would recommend you do the CISSP, and it's not going to teach you how to be an architect, and it's not going to teach you cybersecurity as well, but it'll give you some ideas. It'll tell you what a security policy is. It'll give you a little information about security frameworks. So if I wanted to learn security, I would learn security. I would listen to what Palo Alto has to say, Fortinet has to say, Checkpoint has to say, Cisco has to say. They're the market leaders in security. I would learn about packet filters, and I'd start learning about how firewalls work. I'd look at their algorithms, see which ones use AI. I would look at the security frameworks like the NIST frameworks that are out there. I would look at, encryption strategies. When to use symmetric encryption versus asymmetric encryption. How to encrypt your storage, what needs to be done in the systems. And we teach the Cloud Security Architect program in our Cloud Architect Career Development program. And I've got lots of people getting great cloud security architect jobs inside of that program. So we have perfect training for it, and we get perfect hires constantly. But the key to remember is you have to understand architecture, which is the design, presentation, and sales of all the components. How many firewalls do I need? What algorithms do I need on the firewall? Do I use this AI thing and say, what is my identity and access going to look like? What's the security strategy? What are the personnel training things? That's what we do as architects.
Hey,
talking about cloud security architects, Robert Welch was one of my students. Robert, I'm thrilled to see you. You came through our program and became a world-class cloud security architect and got a great job. I'm thrilled to see you here, Robert. I think you were 61. And on 60, I think I remember you told me you did a backflip for the first time. And at 61, you got that great cloud security architect job. Robert, I'm so happy to see your name pop up here. And be like Robert, come to our program, we'll get you a great cloud security architect job. And Robert, what do you like about your cloud security architect job? You want to tell us in the chat box, tell us if you like it or don't like it. Tell us if you're configuring firewalls or if you're going to meetings.
From Epitemi, how do I start cloud solution architect career with no experience?
Well, Epitemi, we do this every single day. I'll give you a few examples. Noah Parker was a social worker. We got him hired as a cloud security architect. Jennifer Emu was a mental health tech. We got hired as a cloud security architect. Let's give you some other people with zero experience. Balwinder was a stay-at-home mom, was a cloud security architect at Microsoft. Delray, we got a cloud security architect job at CDW, and he was an EMT on ambulances. Daniel Bosa was selling shoes at Nordstrom, and now he's working at JP Morgan Chase as a cloud architect. Wallace Sagan was working at JP Morgan Chase as an enterprise architect. Coyote, we got a job at AWS as an architect, and he was a college student. Yvonne Tamba was a college student working as a waiter who's now working at AWS after our training. Jordan Kitko, I forget what he did, but he's now at AWS after our training. And I give you enough examples. I could give you 40, 50, probably 100 or 200 more, but I could go on forever. But the point is you need to be trained as an architect. You need to know how to design systems, how to present systems, how to sell systems. We have a cloud architect career development program which gets people hired every single day. You will need to learn all those networking and data center concepts that I talked about, everything from BGP to the IP addressing, your subnetting, your supernetting, how to select the right WAN technology, whether it be IPsec, title, software-defined networking, SASE. You will need to learn, DNS, DHCP, ARP, proxy, ARP, switching, things like VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking. Data center technologies like servers and server virtualization and container orchestration, block storage, object storage, file storage, business applications that impact the business's performance, databases, load balancers, security appliances, but also the critically important sales skills. How do you sell $1 billion solution or $1 million solution or a $50 million solution? How do you present to the CEO, which is different than how do you present to the engineering manager? How to present at conferences the right way? How to lead a team of 50 people to help you design something? How to build the business case? How to write a white paper? How to give a presentation? And even how to interview and how to negotiate a salary, and how to build the right brand when you have no experience to make hiring managers come to you. People like Robert Welch, for example, would get 15 or 20 interview requests per day after the branding work we do with them. And he could probably tell you that in the chat box if he's still here. So you need to do that. So you're going to need some place to give you the business acumen skills and some place to give you the design skills. Now, we don't touch the tech, but it's different to design. For example, you might have someone design a menu, but they don't actually do the cooking at a restaurant. But they know what food goes with what wine. That's what architecture really is. It's about system design. So take our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, and you'll be hired by the end of the program. And that's graduation for us when you're hired. And if you really want to know a lot about this, we're going to have a free webinar on Thursday where we're going to cover everything. My team will pop that link to that webinar in the chat box. But also, there's a document that we wrote for you in our team. It lists everything that you need to know and what you need to learn to get your first cloud architect job, and things about your resume and what hiring managers care about, all of it. It's completely free. The link is in the description below of that. So please download that document as well, because I do want to help you get hired. But please do take this webinar, and on Thursday, and when you come on the webinar, it'll be online and we can have a face-to-face conversation. So I'll be able to interview you and actually see your strengths and weaknesses. I'll be able to see your communication skills and sales skills.
No configuring. Heard it right from the successful man. Golf dinners, events, building presentations, currently specializing in data security and identity, and he loves his job.
And actually, let's keep that there for a second, because that's the key. All these people are doing all these cloud projects when they need to learn how to entertain a client. They need to learn how to build a beautiful presentation, and they need to learn how to sell. And the reality is, on the interview, what are they going to do? They're going to have to sell themselves into the job. They're going to have to deliver a presentation to an audience of 4 or 5, and we're not going to code, and we're not going to configure. So train for the job you want.
From Karen, is it worth becoming a cloud network architect with AI and software-defined networking? And what are your thoughts on Cisco's network cloud? And what do you consider good or expert level cloud networking, cloud network architecture? What would they have to know?
Okay, let's go back to the first one. The first one is, so I think it's still worth becoming cloud network architect. Absolutely. Now, Karen, I'm going to give you an option. You can become a world-class cloud network architect and earn $300,000 a year, or you can not worry so much about the tech, become a cloud architect and focus on your business acumen, your leadership, your sales skills, and executive presence, and earn $800,000 a year with a couple of years experience. That choice is yours. The closer you are to the technology, the less you're going to earn. The closer you are to the business, the more you're going to earn. So that's going to be up to you. Be the money guy, focused on the business, and earn the most. Be the tech guy or girl, focused on the tech, earn the least. But that's up to you. We got to do what makes us happy. AI can't do architecture. AI cannot meet with a client and find out their needs. AI cannot present to the client. AI cannot build a team of 15 people to respond to a proposal or design. AI cannot sell $1 billion deal. AI cannot replace an architect, only engineers. So it's still worth becoming a network architect if you like networking. I think Cisco's network cloud is good. I think there's a lot of good networking clouds like Nile right now, which is doing networking as well. John Chambers funded that startup. And while I love Cisco, if I had to bet on John Chambers over Cisco's new CEO, I'm going to bet on John Chambers every time. I think he's the world's greatest tech leader, and I had the privilege of working for him, and I think he's amazing. But there's other cloud networking clouds too. Aviatrix has their cloud. Versa has their cloud. Palo Alto Prisma has their cloud. Dell has their cloud. There's 1,000,001 clouds that are out there. So I think Cisco's got a good solution. But I think Cisco had some really good leaders, and they all became competitors of Cisco when Cisco developed new leadership after John Chambers left. So I would say Cisco's good, but there's 1,000,001 other great vendors like Juniper Networks that are out there, as well as Nile and all these other networking as a service vendors. I'm also pretty impressed with Kumar and Apurva Mehta. I know them both well, very personally and very deeply, that form Versa Networks, and they're going to have a really good solution network as a service here too. So I definitely think it's definitely a great thing to do, cloud networking, if you like networking. And I love networking. So I spent most of my career in networking. And then, Karen, I realized at some point while working for Cisco, the closer I was to technology, the lower my salary was going to be. So I tried to pretend that I didn't know as much networking so I could focus on the business side. And it gave me a basically 100% raise almost overnight by moving to the business side. So that's up to you. I pretended to be less technical. I still am very technical in networking. I love networking. Now there's the second side of this question. What do I consider a good or expert level network architect? Well, Karen, expert is about having a minimum of 10,000 hours experience in a very small area. I'll give you an example. I have 10,000 hours in just BGP. When I passed the Cisco Certified Internet Expert, in fact, my number is 7417, back when it was a miserable 2-day exam. Here you can see it. I just happen to have it sitting next to me because of a video I made the other day. And when this exam came out, it's not like the exam today. The exam today is much easier. You'd go to the exam and 12 people would take the exam. At the end of the first day, you'd come in on the second day, and of the 12 people that would be there, 11 people would have been sent home. And now you're there, the only one out of 12, because 11 were sent home because they already failed on the first day. And then what would happen in those days is if you made it to the second day, that 1 out of 12, they would then ask you to build something else. And then what would happen is they would send you to lunch. And if you passed the second half of the day, you came back. Now, the remaining that was left, 90% of the people would get failed there. But if you happened to do the second half right, you came back and they broke your network, and then you had a limited amount of time to fix it. That was the old CCIE. When I tried it, upwards of 3 million people had attempted Cisco certification, and my number is 7417, and they started counting at 1028. So I was the 6,500 guy to pass, or person to pass. Having said that, that was my intro to networking. 5 years later, when I did nothing other than BGP, I was considered an expert network architect. So the CCIE was my intro level. That's what I consider to be an expert. But the key is, you can't be an expert on everything. I spent another 10,000 hours on IP multicast, PIM mostly, and IGMP. I'm an expert on that too. But guess what, Karen? I don't know wireless. Why? Because that's not part of my expertise. So an expert is someone that has real depth. I may have read 40,000 pages of just BGP documentation over 5 years. And I worked on BGP all day, every day. I worked with every internet service provider you can think of during those 5 years. You name them, the Big 10, I worked with them. By the end of that, I was an expert. Now, Karen, if I tried to get 3 CCIEs, I would not be an expert. I'd be a junior because I'd be spreading my load around. If I knew wireless and voice and routing and switching, I wouldn't be an expert anymore because I'd be spreading the load around. So an expert is something that's really, really great at one thing. And you're paid better to be an expert. For example, there's a knee surgeon in Vail, Colorado that does knees. This person's so good, they charge $20,000 a knee and they don't accept insurance. And this person does about 6 knees a day. He's an expert. He makes about $600,000 a week just doing knees. That's what an expert is. Likewise, your internal medicine physician that you go to every single day, that you go to when you've got a sore throat or you've got a rash, that person's not an expert on anything. They're a generalist. They're an expert on general medicine, and they send you to the cardiologist, a neurologist, a nephrologist, a rheumatologist based upon the condition. Those people they send you to are experts in their own right. So it's all about what kind of expert you want to be, what you want to know. You could be an expert on software, on SASE. You could be a pure expert just on that. And that's all you do for a period of 5, 10, 15, or 20 years. That's how you become an expert.
From Islam, what is the difference between infrastructure architect and cloud architect? And is cloud architect a part from infrastructure architect?
So Islam is a special.
Before we answer that, I want to let everyone know this is currently our last question. So if you've got any more questions, make sure to put them in our chat box because we want to answer your questions. So put them in there for us. Otherwise, we will have to wrap up. So Mike, I look forward to your answer now.
So the difference between an infrastructure architect is a cloud architect focuses on everything. So they're focusing on the servers and containers. They're focusing on the firewalls. They're focusing on the storage. They're focused on the business apps. They're focused on all aspects of digital transformation. An infrastructure architect is focused on the network. Another word for a network architect. So the key is, do you want to focus on the big picture or do you want to focus on a tiny bit of it? Security architect just focuses on security. Infrastructure architect, mostly the network. Cloud architect, everything. So the key is what you want to do. Both great jobs, I can tell you that. And I've done both. I actually prefer to be an infrastructure person because I like infrastructure. Because I enjoy routing and switching, and I spent nearly a decade at Cisco, and I just love networking. To me, networking is the most fun thing in the world. But I'm a little cuckoo with my networking knowledge, and I truly love it. And I would live, eat, and breathe, and sleep routing protocols. And to me, there's nothing more fun than looking at a routing table with a million routes in it, coming from like 5 different internet service providers, and figuring out how we're going to engineer our traffic to get to the point and place in the best manner and promote the highest availability, highest security, highest reliability environments in the world. But that's me. I'd advise you, as a rule, to focus on being a cloud architect unless you love the network, because you have 2 ways that you can really boost your career over time. You could focus on a tech specialization, or you could focus on the business side. Now, at the end of the day, the closer you are to the business, the more respect you'll glean from your management team, the more respect you'll earn, and the more money you'll earn, and the greater your chances of being promoted to Chief Technology Officer or Chief Information Officer or VP of Architecture. The closer you are to tech, the closer you are to being the techie. And that's okay, but really what matters is doing what you love. And the reality is you might change roles. Early in my career, I loved being really close to the tech. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I thought the network was the most fun thing. But you know what frustrated me is here I was, this BGP expert that was being pulled to every country, and I was in 3 countries a week because people were fighting to speak to me. And the next person comes in, he puts on a suit, he pretends not to know any of it. He got promoted with double the salary. And I'm doing the work, and this person's buying the lunches, dinners, and the scotches. And I went, hey, wait a second. I think that's a really great idea. And I elevated my business skills, dropped my Hugo Boss suits and swapped them out with Armani suits and Canali suits. Next thing I realized, I've got double the earnings, and I'm buying lunches and dinners and drinks on the corporate credit card and not working anymore, and playing golf with people, and going to the Super Bowl and bucks seats. And I don't even understand football, but I still went. Everybody liked it, and the seating was kind of cool, and everybody was happy. So the key is you got to find what's going to make you happy in your career. You can't do a job that you don't enjoy. But now you know the difference between a subject matter expert on the network versus someone that encompasses the big thing. And you also now know the implications for your career. So we may end here unless another question pops up. I know my team is pretty busy, but we try to be here and do everything we can to help you in your community. The key is master your career and not anybody else's. After being in tech for decades now, I've seen there's 2 approaches. Some people try to learn a little of everybody's job. Some people become great at their job. Who do you think wins? The people that are great at their job. Because it doesn't matter how good you are at anybody else's job. Nobody's paying you to be good at somebody else's job. 2, no matter how much you know, if you can't communicate it to others, no one's ever going to know. And it's sad, but the best, most technical people I ever have seen are the ones with the worst careers, because they focus so much on the technology, they forget that somebody's buying the technology and somebody else is using the technology. And if you can't make them appreciate the technology, they're not going to buy it. And we're in a job like a sales engineer or a cloud architect or a solution architect, and you're paid based upon how much people buy. If you can't sell it, unfortunately, replacement will thank you for the really high-paying job that you just had. Communication skills. People undervalue them. This is the most critical skill for the cloud architect. It doesn't matter how good your tech skills are if you can't get the right information from your client. If you have incomplete information, you will never have a proper design. So make sure you got them. Leadership skills. In Africa, they have a proverb. It's changed my life. Steve Jobs was big on this quote as well. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. If you don't have the leadership skills, you will be a one-man army or a one-woman army. If you've got good leadership skills, you can get 50 or 100 people working together on your team. Now, while I always want my architects to know something, I'd rather have somebody that knows zero about architecture and has such good leadership skills that they could bring 50 of the world's greatest architects together on a design than having the best architects in the world try to do it themselves. Because 50 people is better than one, no matter how good you are. And in the end, it all comes down to emotional intelligence. Because the hiring manager is going to remember the way you made them feel in the interview. The people you work with at the end of the day aren't going to worry about what you did right or did wrong, but they're going to worry about how you made them feel, and they're going to remember it. So how do you leave people? And lastly, if you don't have business acumen or business knowledge, and you want a job like an architect's job where your whole goal is to design a system to improve a customer's business performance, and you don't know business, you can't do any digital transformation whatsoever. All you can do is design tech, which might hurt their business, not help them, because you don't understand their business. So make sure whatever you do, you're learning these skills. And the difference between an Olympian and an ordinary athlete, the difference between the people at the top and everybody else is focus. Simone Biles is watch, if you've not seen her do gymnastics, and I'm assuming you all have, watch her. Watch this girl flip, watch her vault, watch her on the bars. I mean, I've never seen anything so impressive in my entire life. The only thing that parallels that is watching Michael Phelps swim and Usain Bolt run. God, it's just magic and art. Here's the thing. Simone Biles is not doing marathon running. She's training her gymnastics. She's playing at her game, and she's the best. So be the best at your game and have a wonderful career. Please join us on Thursday for the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job, and for a real treat, something I'm super excited and super proud of. Next Thursday, we're going to have our Elite Cloud Architect Information Session. This is a program like nothing else in the world. The best of an MBA program. The best of the leadership programs that I did after an MBA. The best of the interview training in the world, and the best cloud architect program in the world that got us #1 rank for online cloud computing education, all rolled into one. Something that'll build you, not only get you hired, get you paid more and promoted, and give you a competitive advantage over everyone else in the world for the rest of your cloud computing career. So I'd say please attend these things. Chris or Alonzo, you want to say anything before we leave?
Absolutely, Mike. It's just always amazing. I'm always excited for everyone to think about the possibilities, think about how you're going to not only change your life, but the knowledge that you have, you're going to be able to provide solutions on a global scale. So again, ask questions. If you didn't ask questions today, then take the time to plan ahead and join us on another opportunity and ask your questions, compile them. Think about what a cloud architect is, where you want to be, what kind of cloud architect you want to be, so that we can help realize your career.
I don't really have much to add to it. I think this has been a great question and answer session. I'm thankful for all the questions that everybody asked. Thanks to Robert for popping in there at the most opportune time, right when we were answering a question about security architecture. I've had fun. Just like Mike said, make sure you join us on our webinar Thursday or the information session next week. We want to help you reach your goal of becoming the cloud architect of your dreams. So thank you, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Bye, everyone.
Bye.